Good evening, everyone. Ellen Sutter of ESP Presents and ESP Book Chats, where we bring page turners your way. Hopefully, you can hear me. Okay, hopefully, you guys can hear me. Okay, that bounced me off air.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm here. I was like, wait a minute. And that bounced off by the call, and you're here. Good.
Oh, yes. That was me calling, actually.
Yeah, I was like, she's calling and she should be here. And it's me here. I'm here. It takes a little bit to write. I have to write this stuff in here. It takes a little bit to
Yeah.
label this and stuff. Somebody is trying to get on screen. I don't know who that is, but our guest today is, I'm not going to open the door because you're the only one that should be on screen. Thank you
Okay.
guys for coming in. And our guest today is Marian West Ulrich. And show your book. I was going
Yes.
to put your book up, but once you're on
There
screen, I can't put it up. There
is
is the book.
wings
There.
of resilience. How to move ahead in the face of adversity, basically.
Yes,
Wings of
yes,
resilience.
yes. I was looking at the little bit on the things that we're going to talk about today. OMG. And I meant to tell you, you're a beautiful gal.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
so beautiful. I didn't really see because I can't see what all these words here. And
Yeah.
once they go down, but let's just get started. I'm glad this is our final day.
I'm saddened by that.
That's why I say I do it as a 3 day, and then we get to talk to each other. We get to kind of have a camaraderie, and next thing you know, that's why it's good to have 3 days to go into the story. Um,
Well, I
it was so
appreciate
much.
you inviting me on.
You are so welcome. It was so much in those chapters
Yeah.
that we read,
Hmm.
and I want to look at. We're going to talk a little bit about those of you that came on. I'm going to reset today. I guess Marian West Ulrich, and so we're going through her book. She had held her book up right here, and there's a lot of things that happen to you, and you're telling your story, your backdrop of what you went through, and I am really loving that entrepreneurship that you just lovey onto you, want to just sticking in there as a single mom. But let's get into it. I want to talk about a little bit about your Aunt Dimple. Then we'll go into looking at Lovey and seeing her grieve at the same time, moving in the process of grieving and also being a wonderful entrepreneurship herself. So let's get started and tell the folks about yourself and just a snippet of the backdrop of the book. And you're an amazing woman.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that question as well. Well, basically, this book is a compilation of many, many years of obstacles that I had to jump through hoops, and there were times when the challenges were so great, I felt like giving up. And I really wrote this book in many ways to give people hope, because so many times we can hit a wall and then we'll just give up. The average human being does that, you know. But with this book, that's why I entitled it Wings of Resilience: How to Thrive in the Face of Adversity, because it's going to happen to us all. Adversity happens. Like they say, life happens, but we've
Hmm.
got to learn how to step through and get all
Yes.
the way through the finish
Hmm.
line. So you had asked me about
Yeah.
my aunt Dimple. She was
Yes.
she's in the story, one of the key characters, and she was my dad's only sister. And she was such a remarkable lady. She was very prim and proper. And I remember our father used to take us over there every week because our grandmother lived with her at that particular time. And he would tell us in advance, do not touch any of her figurines. She had a perfectly beautiful home, and all these figurines are around. And of course, little kids, we're going to want to touch them.
Hmm.
When they told us not to, especially me. My sister was a little bit more, organized than I was in so many ways. But as far as you mentioned Lovey was, I think she's one of the key characters in the story too.
Yes.
She was a very, very remarkable person who she actually, I didn't realize it at the time, but she modeled an example of how to become resilient in the
Mm-hmm.
face of adversity. For example, when I look back and think about how she had to take care of my dad when his health was deteriorating, they had a wonderful marriage. She was very happy with her husband. He was going to work every day, taking care of the family. She stayed home with us. She had a very comfortable life. And then all of a sudden he became ill. Then he died. And here she is faced with two little girls, my sister and I. And in spite of her grief, I really respect her even more now than I did then, because I couldn't see the big picture
Mm-hmm.
then. But she actually decided that she was going to be able to keep the house. She was going to be able to pay the bills and all those things. And how she did it, Ellen, she actually became an entrepreneur based upon her own God-given talents.
Yes. Before you go there, I want to pull out some of those things because I saw her grieve, and I
Mhm.
saw in the story how she did this. And she mentioned she does not want to live on government assistance. And so by doing so, like you said, her own things that she had, she cooked, she did
Mhm.
ironing, she did all those stuff and had very prestigious people who
Mhm.
were her clientele. And
Mhm.
so that's what I want to look at. I want to look at, the things that, and also she, you were there with her as well as learning those things, those skills we don't do anymore, have our daughters there and show them how to cook and different things like that. And so those culinary skills, small laundry, I want you to talk about that. What was it, that experience like? Just seeing her, number one, grieving
Mhm.
and saying and being adamant, I am not going to be on any government assistance. I'm
Mhm.
going to make it. Could you tell us about that? And how was that for you seeing her do that?
Well, first of all, thank you for that question, Ellen. I noticed that she was going through some serious grief, but she was the type of person that kept it within herself. And then she made a decision. She looked inward and said, wait a minute, she had an amazing talent
Mhm.
for sewing, for instance. She was a seamstress and she took on business as far as making dresses for ladies. She made suits and she made pants and all these different things. She was excellent in that. Also, she took on doing laundry. In our where we grew up in Webster Groves, there were a lot of really wealthy people, and they had a need for their husbands' shirts to be ironed because those ladies didn't want to iron shirts. back in the day, back in the day, like compared to today, you can just wear your clothes, put them in the washer, then put them in the dryer, pull them out, and you're good to go. But not when we were growing up. We used to see our mother use that liquid starch. It's like a liquid, you dip it, the clothes in it, and then you sprinkle them with a sprinkler. No one knows what I'm talking about unless they're this this is ancient history. But she used to do
You
that.
explained in the book, and it was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, she did that, and she actually had her own system. She was very
Mhm.
analytical. So I do remember her ironing these men's shirts, and this one lady named Mrs. Smith, she'd come by our house. She'd drop the clothes off on Wednesday and come back on Friday, and she would say, "Oh, Miss West, these are so beautiful. I could never iron this good." I mean, it was just like perfect. So she had those kind of clients. And then her culinary skills were unmatched.
Mm.
She was the best. Like what she did, she used to bake cakes from scratch.
Wow.
And she would make triple layer chocolate cakes, German chocolate cake, pound cake. She would make coconut cakes, all these different kind of cakes, and they would be beautiful and delicious. And people would order those cakes, and then she'd make them and come back. They'd come by the house and pick up the cakes.
You know,
So,
with that,
mhm,
Marian, I see in there too, coming from the Jim Crow and, diaspora, era. And so a lot of that you mentioned in the book, not just because she can cook, but there were some systemic things. And you mentioned how she couldn't get into restaurants because she was Black, Black
mhm,
people wasn't allowed. And you mentioned how she would, when she get a chance to eat, she could do a replica of what was made, and she would do those things when people want something, and she did that replica, and it was just amazing and better. So you mentioned that in the book about that, and so that's what I wanted the folks to see, that it's not just because also inclusive with living in the Jim Crow time, that Black
mhm.
was not allowed to go in the restaurant, had to go in the back door. And she learned these skills. Go ahead, tell us more about her.
Yes, well, speaking of her culinary skills, I don't know anything that she could not prepare. She could actually uh, taste something that someone else made and go home and duplicate it. And she used to get magazines that had pictures of different types of food, and she would just make it just superbly. Later on, because of her skills and because of her work ethic, word got around to this professional dentist, African American dentist, who was a friend of the family physician in our town. We had a really, I think I mentioned in the book about a
Yeah,
physician named Dr.
yeah.
Rusan.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Rusan was everybody's doctor.
Wow.
And it was like a meeting place for the community. We'd all be in there going to get our shots and different things. And he had a friend that lived in the same neighborhood, Dr. Bennett, who was a dentist. And he and his wife needed someone to help them do catering because they used to have nice, beautiful parties, and they used to entertain a lot of the politicians that came in town. And at the time, Ellen, we did not know that the politicians couldn't eat at the restaurants. So they would go to the homes, they'd be invited to the homes of the doctors, the African American doctors, and dentists.
Mm.
So they hired Mother Lovey, they hired her to take care of all the food. She laid it out. I mean, they loved her. She received all kind of tips and everything, and I think it elevated her
Mm-hmm.
self-esteem to know that she had something that was so in demand, and people admired her for that. And I think that's how she was able to focus her, take her mind off of her grief and focus on something else that would allow her to grow
Mm.
in her field. So I looked at her and said, wow, we're getting to keep our house
Yeah.
after all. She made the payments on the house. And then later on, she had enough money where she could buy a car. We had I think it was what year? A 1965 Chevrolet Bel Air back in the day. And we were so proud of that car because our mom actually took her talents that God gave her and was able to raise us,
Mm-hmm.
until we were 18 and 18 and 19, excuse me. And so I think that a lot of times when children are growing up, they don't realize really what their parents do for them. They kind of take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
But once we grow up and we can look back at those days and say, wow,
Mm.
now I knew what life was like.
You also mentioned in the book too, if we go back a little bit, how not only was she grieving and how she just brought out her talent, and I see that as a reader in the book as well, how even though she was grieved, she was able to move in the process of grieving. You also mentioned that you was very appreciative that she was Lovey was able to keep you two girls could have been in an orphan home of such. And then you also show how, I like that, that you are now, you guys are teenagers. She's going through menopause, you're
Yeah.
going through puberty.
Yeah.
And then what do you do with that? And then along with grieving, these two girls to raise. And you mentioned that she said she'll do it up until you. I'm not saying, and you could help me better, you girls are going to be 18, pretty much, an adult, So with that being said, did you guys live with her a little bit more, or was at the age of 18 and you guys kind of like got your own and went forward? Because I do see in the book, we're going to get on that a little bit later, your life story as a single mom. What a beautiful backdrop that you give us in that story.
Well, thank you for asking that, Ellen. After, well, I was 18. No, I'm sorry. I was 19 and my sister was 18. And we actually moved out and we moved to a town called University City. And we lived in this cute place. I think they call it a two-family flat, and we lived upstairs.
That's good.
Yeah, and it was a nice place, and we learned our independence. We were really happy that we were able to do that. We had some money saved because in the meantime, my mom showed me how to work, and I ended up ironing shirts. I used to iron shirts for one of my uncles who worked for the Webster Grove School District as a janitor. And he had all these uniforms. They looked like the kind of uniforms that Andy Griffith wore,
Oh,
you know.
yes. Folks might not remember. We were telling our age, but yeah.
Yes. So I used to iron shirts, and I'd get his uniform. I'd get 50 cents for the shirt and 50 cents for the pants. And I used to be so proud of being able to get the creases in the pants. I thought that was amazing. And ironing the yoke of the shirt and ironing the collar and all that. And that gave me the ability to say, wow, I can earn money. And then later, after that, I had an aunt whose name was Sarah. Aunt Sarah, she was somebody amazing. She recommended me to this white couple who had some children, and she recommended me to be the babysitter at 14. And I was so happy to do that. And I saved all my money. And then I just felt, wow, I can start earning money. I was really happy about that.
So there, we get to see a little bit, and we're just going to ease our way into that. And I'm going to reset. And, as we ease our way on to you now, showing that great example of entrepreneurship, not giving up, not allowing society to give you a lot in life, and going to school, college, single mom. We're going to get on that, but I'm going to reset and tell you some of these things on here. You got quite a bit of family here. And I don't know if you could see it, but your daughter Brittany definitely said, "Oh, so that's how you know how to earn."
I love ironing today. Everybody thinks like, why do you like ironing?
Oh my goodness! And you have Deborah. She said, "It's Deborah. It's me, Nina. Are you dating?"
Yes.
I don't know if they're on trying to get in because there's someone that's trying to get in the camera, but we're not going to do that. So if you're in there, just it's two people. We can't let you up because this is our featured right here. And then you have Harris Jr. Cousin Frank has
Oh,
joined. It says hi, Marian. Denise
yeah.
McKennedy.
Oh yeah, Denise Kennedy, Beth is
Then
there. My
yeah.
cousin Frank Harris. That's my
So you
cousin.
got quite a bit of
Mhm.
family. Yep, Beth is here, and these folks, Jordan and Amy. You've got some wonderful people here supporting you. Thank you guys for that, and thank you for coming on here. So we're just going to kind of ease into that because you went through so much. You didn't talk about this, but I did see in the book a bad marriage. They would have to read it themselves,
Yeah.
and then you would think that a person of the cloth. Now you know that you know just because somebody go to church don't mean that they're of God. But yeah,
Right.
see that you slip that in there, a little
Mhm.
bit. And that was really something else. They got to have to read it themselves. But I want to go back a little bit. You went to college, especially when you had your daughter there and she would cover.
Yeah.
Could you tell folks about that and I know babysitters in different situations. So what made you keep going as opposed to you knew you had to take your daughter, you took on a lot of credits in school and all this. Let's talk about that.
Well, again, I think one of the key things, Ellen, is I had made a promise to my daughter that I would do whatever it took to be able to provide for her on my own independently without having to ask for a handout or ask for any kind of state aid or anything like that, because they'll read about in the book the situation that I was in. And I've made this promise to my daughter Nina when she was a tiny baby. She didn't even hear me make the promise,
Yeah.
but I know I made the promise. And so I decided to do whatever it took to succeed. And people will read, all the details, but in essence, what I basically did was I started out at a low paying job, a really low paying job. It was beneath what I wanted to do. But I said, this is a start. I remember times when I didn't even have enough money to pay for my lunch, but this real nice lady that worked there who was a cook, she would always look at me and say, girl, you're too skinny. You better eat something. And her name was Pearl. She was a nice lady. And then, long story short, I was able to get a really pretty good job. And it was enough for me to pay the rent and the groceries and all the things for my daughter. I was able to put her in a little private daycare thing.
Wow.
So my schedule consisted of getting up early in the morning, getting my daughter ready, dropping her off at the daycare, then working at this company for 8 hours, then go back and get my daughter, then drop her off at my sister so my sister could take care of her. Then I would go to the university taking the same amount of classes that I would have taken if I had gone to day school. Like I took 12 to 15 units
Mm.
in the evening. And then I would come home and study until like about 2 o'clock in the morning and all that, and then start all over again. And I just said, this is only going to be for a certain period of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be forever. And if I don't do this now, time's going to pass anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I might as well get to the goal. And when everybody reads a book, they'll know about the obstacles. I'm not going to go
Yeah.
into all that.
Yeah.
It was about keeping a promise. It was about keeping a promise. And so that that is in a nutshell what it's about.
But I see you were adamant giving up was not an option. Can you tell us what it took to not give up?
Mhm.
All those hours, all those classes, and then when we'll talk about it a little later. When you got to having your job, they didn't realize how much you were taking on. And being
Mhm.
in class late, but there were times you had to bring your baby in your
Oh
in your. Let's talk
yeah.
about that.
Yeah. My daughter still talks about that when I used to take her, those big lecture halls they have at the
Yeah.
universities.
Yeah.
I would have to take my daughter sometime because I didn't have a babysitter. And so one day I got there late. My daughter was, squirming in her seat. And the professor called me up and said, he called me to come up to the front. He had something to say to me. And he goes, I have, I noticed you come in here late and wait to the last minute and you turn your paper in late, at the last, 11th hour. He said, but I have never in my life seen anyone work so well under pressure. And I have no other recourse but to give you an A in this class.
Mm.
And I was like, Oh my gosh, because I was so scared when he called me up there. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Wow. And they just didn't knew. And it was like, I'm not saying it was no bother, but it was like no bother as we read through there. You were getting to that goal. You were getting to that goal no matter what it took. And that lovely, beautiful picture of your daughter. I think you said she was about 5 years old. And she
Yeah.
graduation. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness, what a wonderful picture. And you had a memory of that, graduating from college with your baby. And you get to see that, some people in high school, they have their baby, they finish high school with the baby, go across the stage. And it's honorable nowadays, back in the day when you're pregnant, you had to walk on the other side of the street. Folks might
Mm-hmm.
remember that. You couldn't go to the same school and all that stuff. If you look at them, you might be pregnant. Just don't walk next to them. I remember those days. Could not go to the same school. And so even with that, I seen when you got to your job, when you talked about, AT&T. To me, that was racial discrimination
Mm. Oh,
at,
yeah.
at its highest.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then to tell you, they're not going to like you, and to tell you exactly what you were in for. I'm
Mm-hmm.
surprised they spelled it out for you.
Oh,
How were
yeah.
you
That
able,
was,
how were you able to
and I didn't
do
let it stop me though. I just said, with God before me, I'll just walk through this with God,
that?
because I know it was too big for me, but it wasn't too big for God.
Wow. And they said one of the first Black women. How did you feel going from day to day in there, knowing that you're the only Black?
Hmm.
Were you treated kindly, even though they stood behind that good old boy thing?
Hmm. Well, I was treated just like, well, in other words, I walked in there and I had worked really hard to get a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. And they felt I had to go to one level of individual and talk to them. I've worked this hard and, this is what I've accomplished and I would love to be, part of your management training program. And they'll read in the book all that I went through and all that I had to say
Yeah.
and go, I ended up going to the person who was over everybody in the company. And this is like over 5 states. I went in there to him and now that I think about it, I'm kind of like, wow, that was pretty bold, but I just knew that I had no other
That
recourse.
was bold.
I just,
What gave you the strength to do that and actually writing the letter? And
yeah.
like, oh my goodness, she wrote the letter and knowing what to say, you know, and getting the big heads attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the letter I wrote, it took quite a while to put that together because I had to really give it a lot of thought. And I felt like I was putting my career on the line,
Mm-hmm.
'cause if it hadn't turned out where they understood later, I could have lost my job and lost the opportunity to even work there
Wow.
anymore. But it was a lot of prayer, a lot of prayer, and a lot of faith in God. And the Lord saw me through that. And as people will read, they'll know the real story, what happened
Mm-hmm.
in the process. But back to your other question in regards to how the people treated me, I felt like when it was all men in the department, and they were all they had degrees in engineering, and they were just pretty. They would look at me as if I was a secretary because a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
they asked me if I could make the coffee.
Not knowing your position. Hey, go make the
Yes,
coffee.
yeah, they looked at me as like a coffee, and I'll never forget this one man named Tom. He came up to me and he said, Marian, you really should be grateful to be in this company and to have that position you have. And I looked at him and I said, you know what, Tom, this is a career that you want to hold on to, but for me, this is just a stepping stone.
Mm.
I had to tell him that because it felt to me as if they were condescending of me, and they didn't even realize what talent I had. You know, I didn't have a degree in engineering, but the position I ended up with was to be over, set up the product display centers.
Mhm.
And it used to be, well, the territory we had was called MOCA, which stands for Missouri, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, and Texas.
Mhm.
So I got to have a life where the career was great. I got to travel and stay at nice places. And I thought it was really great back in the day.
But you know,
And
Marian, that's like coming of age, and the reason why I say that is because it wasn't a lot of women in corporate, and you know, black and plus being in corporate, you know, and being a woman, you couldn't just get jobs like that. And that was like to me coming of age. Now you have a lot of career women, and so you were you know in the position of a career woman at that time, and you knew your worth. And so when we read through that and you write those letters and you knew how to be an advocate for yourself, you made sure that you took care of you. And yeah, it looked like you was going to get fired and thrown out the door. I was like, ooh, she's going to get it now. But no, yeah, you knew your worth. That's awesome.
yeah, well,
That is
praise God.
awesome. Yeah.
I'm so glad, you know, and that's another reason, as I mentioned earlier, why I wrote this book. I just want people to know that if they approach in life something that's really difficult, you don't have to turn back. You can just take baby
Mhm.
steps toward it, because there it's either going to happen or it's not going to
Mhm.
happen. What else do we have to
Mhm.
lose, you know?
Mhm. And then, like you said, you had those degrees and stuff,
Mhm.
and being in there, so you knew, like I say, your worth, and you know, having those degrees and that, you know, put you there, and they don't even know your backdrop or your story, and um, your sister, you and your sister, you said you guys moved away, you were in the apartment together, and
Mhm.
what does she see as a big, let's see, you're the oldest, right?
I'm
Big,
the oldest,
what does
right?
she see? What did she get to glean on as a big sister? Those things you were, you know, doing not only for yourself and your daughter because of those promises, but those promises took you and your sister and your baby through, you know,
Mhm.
with those things.
Yes, well, my sister Beverly, um, she and I basically did almost the same thing, because I'm not that much older than her, and she ended up going back to school at at the university. It's called St. Louis University. I went to Washington University, and they're both in St. Louis. And we both studied together, worked hard together. She was really supportive of me because she helped me with my child during the time I was a single mom. She helped me with my child, and we were able to kind of go through this life together
Mm-hmm.
as each other's biggest supporter.
Mm-hmm. I really
Hmm.
love you. It's Nina. Nina.
Oh, that's my daughter,
Oh,
Nina. The one I'm talking about.
yes, yes, yes. This is with that. Looking through the, what would you say to, and I know you're married now, just look at yourself back then. What would you say to those single moms that are working hard? So people look at society sometimes look at and I paraphrase, I'm saying in general, look at single moms, and I've come to know, like from my sisters, that her kids, they all went to college and they got their
Hmm.
masters. And so the single moms, to me, is like, I don't know if you've ever been in the military or someone in the military. My husband is on the ship. They have this little bitty boat, little bitty, I don't know what you call it, that kind of floats the ship out. It is little bitty old thing. And so I look at it that way, as single moms, they keep things together. Although we may say, hey, single moms, they, you know, all these things attribute to being a single mom, but there's a lot of contribution that single moms do to for society as a single mom. And now we have, as we talked, discussed our last talk, is that now we have a lot of single moms in the home, and they holding it down, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so what would you say yourself back then to single mamas today, as far as having that career, having that, making it, and the goal is to not give up. It is not a goal to give up. The goal of success is to move
Mm-hmm.
forward. What would you say to those women now? And we have single men as well commended.
Sure. Single parenting is not the easiest task, but I always say that it's important to look at yourself, see what you have going for you, assess what you would like to accomplish in your life that will encompass a good lifestyle for your children. And also, a lot of times you may have to start in a place that's not the greatest job, but a job is better than asking for a handout from the government,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to always feel a higher self-esteem about yourself. If you're, there's a saying, you can give a man a fish and feed him for one day, or you can teach a man how to fish and feed him for a lifetime. So in my book, I talk about fisher women. We need to learn how to become fisher women so that we can provide for a lifetime, not just for a day, get a handout and get enough for a day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I said fisher women. And lately I've received some different messages from the various, like for instance, text, phone calls, and WhatsApp. People are saying, what about the fishermen?
We're just talking about the women. They've been fishing for.
Yes, yeah, they could be fishermen too.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I have a cousin online on the phone now. I mean, he's on this broadcast. His name is Frank Harris, and he has experience of being a single dad, and he did a great job.
See,
He
we
did a
don't
great
talk
job.
about that as much because, we just don't. We look at the women, not that the
Mm-hmm.
men in that light. But you always see single women, and they look at us as heroes, and they look at fathers as that's what you're supposed to do. Because women are always doing it, but I commend that. That is wonderful. You also, I wanted to ask you, like, what was your encouragement to yourself? Dad had passed. They will read in the book the thing that happened to you as a young teen. They will read that happening. But I wanted to ask you before I talk about that, a little spoiler, okay? It's probably a
What was
huge
it?
spoiler. It's probably a huge spoiler, but a little spoiler.
Oh, okay.
Uh, when you got that chocolate and they were reading it,
Mm.
was it poison that made you go in the thing, or just did Nina not like the
No,
chocolate?
it wasn't poison. It was just a coincidence.
Like, did he poison
No, I wasn't poisoned.
her? Like, all of a sudden, get some chocolate. You tell her what you're gonna tell her.
Yes.
They'll hear what else happened, and then he chose another person, and then you eat this chocolate and off to the hospital. You go, oh my God, did he poison?
Yes. Well, I
On
probably,
that day, did he poison her?
now that you mention that, I can see it why you read it and would have assumed it. But actually, with the terrible, devastating news that I received from this wonderful person,
Mm-hmm.
um, it broke my heart so much that I sobbed and cried, and I probably brought on my own labor.
Wow, I didn't even think about
Yeah.
it because that was a lot of, I want to call it grief, or that was trauma. That
Oh, it
was
was
some
very
trauma.
traumatic and devastating.
Yeah, being young, you know, first time things happening. And that's what I want to ask. I'm like, did he, what? When they see it, when they read it and they revisit themselves, that's why I say this might be a huge spoiler, but they get a chance to see that. But I needed to know, did he poison you? Did what? I was ready. I was ready to fight.
Thank God I wasn't poisoned.
Yeah, I'm just
Uh,
ready to fight on Valentine's Day. And then it's funny how we're reading this book and Valentine's Day. What's going on while we were reading this book? So I'm
yes.
like,
Is that amazing? Is that a
yeah,
coincidence or what?
like, okay, I'm reading it and it is Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Playing
Wow.
just right. What did you tell yourself? This is what I wanted to ask you. Um, your dad passed, you had Lovey, you had to you move forward,
Mm-hmm.
and you talk about your beloved dad a lot. You didn't know if you would make it. What encouragement did you give yourself going forward? And you're going to go into adulthood, and Livy, she could do so much as you guys grow older. What encouragement did you give yourself to keep it moving?
Well, I just did a whole lot of praying. I was involved, my sister and I, we were involved in church activities, and we had friends in the neighborhood, a support group, and we had a whole lot of family, a lot of relatives in our community that we spent time with. And I just wanted to be the very best I could be because I knew my dad would have wanted that.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
was actually my inspiration, as we talked about last week. He was such an encourager, and he always said that someday we'll be able to go into doors that he never could even enter. And I just wanted to fulfill that dream too, because he planted the seed,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I just made a decision. If time's going to pass anyway, we might as well let the time pass where we're doing something constructive.
Mm-hmm. And that little bit, being a mom, did you feel that when you went through and they're reading the book,
Mhm.
because I got to see you so hurt, by what, transpired in your life going forward. And, now being a teenager, at the cuffs of adulthood. And it just seemed like you were so hurt and you wanted to long for that perfection. And
Mhm.
it was like you knew you had failed, but you kind of kept moving in a way. What was that moment? Did you feel like you had really, really failed at that moment?
Well, I felt like, I let my dad down, even though he wasn't still living. And I was thinking, oh, my dad was still living, he would be so disappointed with me, and all that kind of stuff. And then I just wanted to make it, just
Mm-hmm.
to say, let's see how far the Lord can take
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my father took me as far as he could.
Yeah.
Mother Lovey, she took me as far as she could. And I just said, I want to make this journey, even though I have all these different obstacles and a lot of devastating things going on, and all those things that I mentioned in the
Mm-hmm.
book. I just kept seeing the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very tough it was a very tough road. In fact, it threw me into depression.
Mm-hmm.
I remember just staring at the ceiling, not the ceiling, but at the wall for a long, long time. One
Wow.
day. But I just said, I have to snap out of this. This isn't going to carry me anywhere. I've got to keep going.
Wow.
And I think I kind of wore myself down in many ways because, as I said, you can only do that for so long. It's not sustainable
It's not.
to get up in the morning and end up going to work and then picking up your baby, then coming home for a minute and leaving to go to full-time
Mm-hmm.
school and keep a very good grade point
Yeah.
average. It was a lot. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. And that's why I wanted to just get it over with and not
Mm-hmm.
drag it out. You
Mm-hmm.
know.
Marian, what were some of the stories, if you could remember, that you were telling Nina as she grew up, and and now she was like 5. You said you always talked,
Mhm.
you talked to her even before you thought she could hear what you were saying.
Mhm.
What were some of
Yeah.
those talks, if you reflect, do some backdrops of what you had gone through to move forward in the adult life. If you can share, what were some of the things that you would share with Nina, as you were
Mhm.
going forward?
Mhm. Well, one of the things I always told Nina and every one of my children, I always say, you better stand up for yourself in this world because no one else is going to stand up for you. That's something I've always said. And I remember when I was able to buy our first home, it was just Nina and me. I saw that dream come true. I was just
Uh,
so happy that I actually could buy a home, and it was a cute little house. Nina had her nice room with a Holly Hobby furniture, dolls, and all this stuff. And I was just so thankful to see the fruits of my labor and
mhm,
all that hard work I had done to be able to keep the promise to my daughter. And I think basically with Nina, she has watched me
mhm,
because children will do what you
exactly.
do more than they will do what you say.
Mhm.
You know,
So true.
so I think she always, even now, she just loves to tell me all these good things, which I enjoy hearing.
Wow. Wow.
Oh,
The fruits of the labor.
yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's a lot of labor.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It was just so much in there. And like you said, you learned a lot and you had them skills from Lovey, you know, doing the
Mhm.
ironing, cooking. Because I also seen you cook 100 piece of chicken and you
Yeah.
just got down. So what did you, were you
Yes.
nervous when you did that? You
No.
said Lovey taught
No.
so many skills.
No. In fact, I just did some for someone's birthday. Oh, I know. It was my sister was visiting, my sister Beverly, who's on now, she was visiting during the holidays and she goes, Marian, you're gonna have to fry some chicken for me. So I have this big commercial fryer
Mhm.
and I owe the recipe to Lovey, you know, she's the one that created it and so many people have come over and asked me to make it when I was in California and even here. So I love doing it, but it's Lovey's recipe. I can't take credit for what she created.
Did you do any of those like baked cakes and different things like Lovey did?
Yeah. Now I'm not a baker.
Hmm.
I don't bake cakes, but one of my daughters, Brittany, she bakes cakes, and my daughter Francesca,
And
they
Brittany,
do that kind of baking. I don't like baking. I just love cooking.
oh, do a wonderful job. So in
Yeah.
your book, it's our time is almost up, I tell you, and this is our last day together. Oh, Brittany said
Oh
her
yes.
fried chicken is so delicious. She even put a
Oh,
little chicken right there for you to see. Uh,
did she?
yeah,
Who said that? Let me see
that
my
was Brittany.
glasses.
She said her
Oh
fried chicken
yeah.
so
Yeah, I
delicious.
fried some for her birthday last
Oh,
year, and I try to do like I love doing it, and it's just I've taught them a little bit how to do it, but there's so many steps to it,
hmm.
you know. Yeah, and you know, incidentally, if Lovey had been in a different era,
Hmm.
like even now, she would have a
Wow.
chain because there's no other
Yeah,
fried chicken like that anywhere.
better than
She could have had her own business.
better than
Pardon?
KFC went down, so
Oh,
she be way better than KFC. It's
yeah,
just
we don't
not doing.
eat that.
It's not what it used to do.
Right.
So with your book, what do you want? And our time is going fast. Let me read that. We have. I don't know how to
Oh,
read it.
Beth said, I'll never forget the fried chicken from the makeup night.
Oh,
That's right, Beth.
oh,
There.
oh, wow!
Yeah,
And
that was
somebody
a funny story.
bust.
That was a funny story. I made the fried chicken, and she was one of the one that just said that. She was there, and a whole bunch of other ladies, and we had a great time. That was one of the nights I made at least 100 pieces.
Wow!
I fried about, yeah,
Wow!
yeah. But I love doing it. But
I'm
I
gonna
just don't want to do it for a living.
Wow, I blame you. I'm going to do a reset. Thank you, Angela Present. If you're still here, anybody that's on here, thank you for being here. Whether you just got on a little bit, did your own thing, I really appreciate your faces right here on the screen. And it is a wonderful time. This is our last talk. This is day 3 with Marian West Ulrich, and certainly have a nice time here wonderful discussion. There's so much in that book. You guys show that book again so they can see your book.
Yes.
And that's there. It's very inspirational. It's a quick read if you read it real quick, but it's so much that's in that book. A lot of stuff that you took us back. You know what? I think you took us back from the what, the 50s on up to now. I mean, like not now, but you know what I'm saying, the 50s
Mm-hmm.
until when you dropped the book. So it goes back as far as the 50s, right?
That's correct.
And
That
you got
is.
something
That's true.
coming up. You're going to do another book. You said it's going to be
Yes.
something that you would do. Your genetic, what I want to say. I want to say genetics, but
Yeah. Genealogy.
genealogy. That's
Uh-huh.
the. So, what do you want the folks to take away with once they read your book here, when they read a Marian West Ulrich book? What do you want them to take away with this book you just dropped and others?
Well, I would love for the people that read this book to see themselves in it, because there's so many aspects of different things that I went through in this book, and I'm sure that so many people can relate. And if if for any other reason, if I could be some example to them, especially say single moms or people who lost their husband through death, that's happened to
Mhm.
me, and I talk about that in there. I talk about how to move forward in a
Yeah,
career, how to raise your child. All this is all wrapped up into one,
yeah.
and I really would love for people to know that the Lord Jesus Christ is there for everybody. And as they can read in my book, even when I talk about the different things I went through, I also allude to the fact of how important it is for me to put God first in everything I do.
hmm And we
Mm-hmm.
get to see that. We get to see that as you went forward in your business career. We get to see that in everything you did. And you were very, we get to see, I don't want to, it seemed like you knew that all things work together for the good, whether it's bad or it's good. It's all filtered through God's love. Nothing can happen to us that God hasn't allowed. You know what I'm saying? And we hate to look at it that way. We want to look at the good. And so you even mentioned in there, how it's for your good.
Mm-hmm.
You
Absolutely, because I always say that I cannot take credit for what the Lord has done. Everything that I've accomplished, it's because He did it.
Mhm,
Whatever, in the Bible it says, "What do you have that you did not receive?"
mhm,
And also in Romans 8:28 it talks about all things work together for good
mhm,
for those who love the Lord and who are called to
mhm.
His purpose. So I just figure, I said, well, I know this, what I'm going through is pretty rough,
Yeah,
but I'm not directing myself. The Lord is,
yeah.
and He's stronger than me, and I can lean on Him to be able to be resilient.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is good. Just to see that and to read different things and all the things going back. There is, like I said, so many things that you had gone through. And then, like you say, witnessing the death of your mom, witnessing so many things. I won't give it all away in the book and that you put in there. And it's like you just remember everything like it was yesterday. It's like, I should remember all this. But you remember everything yesterday, and to see that in there, it's a power packed book. It's a quick read, and it's some things you just have to pause on, especially the part when we've seen the family when you guys had to relocate. I wasn't ready for
Mm-hmm.
I was not ready for that. But like as I said when we talked about it, is I'm glad that you showed the emotion of one family what they had gone through. And then, like you said, your dad was quiet when it comes to the relocation, and you guys will see that. But that was devastating to read that. And to myself, like I told you, the last talk we had before this one, is that I wondered how, because living there and also house paid for it, all these things, I knew that had to be more. I knew it had to be more. And thank you for putting that in there. But guys are gonna have to read it slow because it's it's a lot. It's a lot. It
Yeah.
is a lot.
When I read that book, when I read this book right here, and if I didn't know it was me that I was talking about, you know, just reading it, I said, whoa, the Lord brought me through so much. Even at the beginning of the book, when I talk about the first chapter, the
I
red
know
rose,
that
do you actually, that was
it
devastating.
was. I could not believe I was so mad at that. And so like right then, the people that in that time, it was easy for a church mother to come up and to do things like that. Like right now, today, this generation wouldn't be able to handle that at all. There would probably be a church fight, you know. that was that's and your
Oh,
kids. It's like, why would you do the baby like that? You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? That is a huge opening. That was a huge opening. And it was so disrespectful. And I don't know who gave them the authority to do that. But then that's when you found out something that, your daddy was not trying to hurt you. But then you
Mhm.
found out something and you realize, okay, you know,
Mhm.
about the mother. But
Mhm.
that is it's
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, our time is up. This is our last day. We certainly had a wonderful time going through your book. You will get your review,
Thank you.
and just give me a moment because I have other shows, and you'll get that. It'll be on Amazon as well as Goodread. You'll get both of those on there. And so just have an amazing night and continue to share your story. And we're looking forward to your next book. So we're hanging on in there with you, girl.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me on your show. I really consider it an honor to be a part of because I know that your reputation indicates that you mainly talk with New York Times best-selling authors,
Yeah.
and I'm not one of those yet, but I want to be,
You will.
and I really appreciate.
Thank you so much. And thank you for those kudos. Yeah, I didn't know any. I started off with New York Times bestseller. I didn't know any independent writers. I only knew, and the more you mention it, the more I realized, oh my goodness, I went from the top, not knowing it. I did. You'll hear. I'll share my video of the talk that I had with one of Dr. Velma is coming up in March.
Uh-huh.
I'll share it with you, on the thing. But I didn't know. But thank you so much. Thank you for the kudos and kudos back to you and your family, all those that's on here and those who listen and replay time. Thank you so much for that. You have an amazing night. Enjoy your family and these folks here loving on you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, somebody just reminded me to tell, it says, please share where people find her book.
Yes,
Oh, my
let me know
book,
where you can find.
yes. My book is on Amazon.com, or you can also get it from Barnes and Noble. I just found that out from my sister.
Oh, that was Brittany. That was Miss Brittany. She right. You got to share that.
Yes.
You got to share where that is,
So,
and it's on Kindle as well.
oh, that's right. It's on
Mhm.
Kindle, and also we're going to be coming out with Audible. And I have several book events coming up. I
Awesome.
have like 5 different events coming up so far, and I can post it on a site later on my
Okay.
website so people can know.
And I'm
And
sure
if anyone,
put it on Facebook so we can all share it.
okay, yes,
And
ma'am. Let's see, who else
he
has
put
said
that
something?
your son-in-law, awesome son-in-law.
Oh
He
yeah,
put that on there. Folks can see it. He is amazing. And
oh yeah. He put the link. Oh,
yeah,
how neat.
he got it. He got
Yeah,
you. He got
yeah.
you.
Oh, and you know what? If someone wants to, they could just go to Amazon and put my name in it, Marian West Ulrich, book, and it'll just click, and it'll take you there too.
Yeah. So
So, and
your book
also
is
those of you who read it, tell somebody else about it.
yes.
Because I really want this book to be a world
It
changer. Because
will
we need some positive stuff in our environment. And not have to focus on all the negative things that's going on
would
in the world
great
right
gift.
now.
That's what someone said. It would. It really would make a great gift. It really would. And it will take us back. But that
Mhm.
opening is
Oh,
so amazing.
oh yeah, somebody said that. Thank you
Yeah.
guys for all your hints. I'm seeing all these hints coming up on the screen. It takes a
Yes,
village. It takes a team,
it
right?
does. Yes, it does. And
Yeah.
this is a wonderful story. You'll get to see, backdrops of what happened. And you know, I'm going to let you go on this because I'm a talker, and I just really appreciate from reading Lovey how she treated you guys like daughters. I
Yes.
mean, just loved on you, and so I wouldn't have never known except it was revealed, what's going on. And please leave a review, as she said, leave a review, and you'll get mine. As I say, you will get my review. And this has
Mhm.
been an amazing night. You enjoy yourself, enjoy your wonderful husband, and we look forward to the next book.
Oh, absolutely, Ellen. And thank you again for inviting me on your show. It's been an honor and a
You are
pleasure. You're such
so.
a wonderful
Thank
lady.
you. You too.
Thank
Thank you so much.
you.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.
So I'm gonna talk to the folks here real quick, not keep them up. Just hit that X up there. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for showing up here, all you guys, for her. Again, I'm Ellen Suddeth of ESP Presents and ESP Book Chats, where we bring page turners your way. If you would like to have our show, it's a 3-day show. It's valued at $250, and we deep dive into your book. You do get a honest book review, and your book will stay on our page. Do swipe and tell others. Tomorrow we will have a show too. It'll be Beasley. I'm sorry, Kimberly Beasley, not Baisley. Kimberly Beasley, and this will be a 8 o'clock show tonight. We're going to talk about her book, which is a children's book, and it is titled "Searching for Me." And it talks about colorism, racism, and mixed lineage. So she will have her day 3, and we'll be ending her story tomorrow. And also we have Master Sergeant Clayton Arline. He will be coming back to finish his story on the 25th. And then on the 27th, we will have William D. McCrary. And his book is a children's book. I got that right here. And it is talking about his son has autism, and we're gonna look. You could like, what could Ellen say about a children's book? This is Power Pack, guys. Let me show you that. And it's titled A Little Boy and a Dragon, and it is a wonderful story about his son who has autism. And I just look forward to that. And here is Miss, Sergeant, Master Sergeant Ireland. I don't know if you guys can see that, but stay tuned. We have other shows coming up. We're booked up into April, and we will have an on New Vibe, which is audio only. We will talk about autism. We're going to talk to fathers who have children with autism. So that's going to be an audio show. You guys have an amazing night. Thank you guys for being here. Bye bye.